In a realm of shimmering sands and whispering winds, there lay a peaceful sultanate called Antistan. It was a kingdom where the fountains never ran dry, the bazaars smelled of roses and cardamom, and the people slept with their windows open. For no thief had ever dared to disturb their peace. This happiness was the doing of its beloved ruler, King Hashem, whose sense of justice was as sharp as a falcon's eye, and his wife, Queen Anam Lubvish, whose kindness was as soft as a cloud's touch. She was called Lubvish because her heart was full of love, and her taste was lavish. Her dresses sparkled like the night sky, and her gardens bloomed with flowers from every corner of the world. The palace of Antistan was not filled with the cold silence of gold and marble. Instead, it echoed with the most precious sound in the world, the laughter of children. The king and queen had been blessed with 6 daughters, but here was the strangest, most wonderful twist. They were all twins. The eldest, Isha and Ariba, were 4 years old and as clever as foxes. The middle pair, Tayaba and Liba, were 3 and as sweet as honey. And the youngest twins, Minahil and Sahiba, were just 2 years old, stumbling about and melting hearts with their lisping words. The palace was a joyful circus from sunrise to sunset. Then, one shimmering morning, a new wave of happiness arrived. Asterisk, Queen Anam Lubvish. Asterisk gave birth to a 7th daughter, but this one was different. She was not a twin. She was a single, perfect little angel. They named her Sirat. From the moment little Sirat opened her eyes, the entire universe of King Hashem and Queen Anam Lubvish shifted. They developed a special, tender attachment to her. The king would rush from his court, forgetting all the burdens of the kingdom, just to lift Sirat onto his lap. The queen would hum lullabies to her for hours while the other 6 sisters played outside. This was the seed of the problem. A tiny, green, thorny weed of jealousy began to grow in the hearts of the 6 elder sisters. They whispered to each other, "Mother and father love Sirat more than us now." Time, as it always does, flew like a swift arrow. Soon, the elder twins, Isha and Ariba, were 10 years old. Middle twins, Tayaba and Liba, were 9. The younger twins, Minahil and Sahiba, were 8. And the little angel, Sirat, had blossomed into a 5-year-old girl with eyes like pools of starlight and a voice so sweet it could make the parrots in the garden stop and listen. But the jealousy in the elder sisters did not fade. It grew like a dark vine. Whenever the 6 sisters wanted to play outside in the forest near the fort, Queen Anam Lubvish would allow them to go. But whenever little Sirat asked to go, the queen would scoop her up and say, "No, my sweet flower, you are still too young. There are dangers outside. Stay here with me." The queen would then feed Sirat grapes in the beautiful palace garden. Isha and Ariba would watch from the terrace, their hearts burning with a fire that had no fuel but hate. "Look," Isha whispered to Ariba one afternoon, her voice as cold as a winter stone. "Abu and Ami only order new toys for Sirat. If it weren't for her, we would still be the darlings of the palace." Ariba nodded, her eyes narrowing. "We have to get her out of the way. Forever." They called the other 4 sisters and hatched a plan so dark it would have made the sun hide behind a cloud. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight crept through the palace windows, Isha and Ariba gently shook the little princess awake. "Sirat, dear sister, wake up," Isha said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Today, we are taking you to a place you have never been." Sirat rubbed her innocent, sleepy eyes. "Where, sister? Does Ami know?" Ariba quickly jumped in. No, it's a surprise. There's a magic place in the forest where fairies live. There are trees that grow sweet candies and toys that dance by themselves. Do you want to come?" Little Sirat's face lit up like a lantern. She trusted her sisters completely. She slipped her tiny hand into Ariba's, and the 7 of them snuck out through the back door of the palace, into the whispering woods. They walked and walked until the sound of the palace faded away. They reached a part of the forest that was dark and tangled, where the sunlight barely touched the ground. There, in the middle of a clearing, stood an old, crumbling well. It was deep, dark, and looked as old as time itself. Isha pointed a finger at the well. Look, Sea-Rat. Look inside. That is the door to the fairy city. The innocent little girl walked to the edge of the well. She stood on her tiptoes, leaning forward to peek into the darkness below. And then, in one brutal, silent moment, Isha and Ariba pushed her. Sea-Rat let out a scream that was swallowed by the deep well. She tumbled down, down, down into the cold, damp darkness. The other four sisters trembled with horror. But the monster of jealousy was too strong. Isha grabbed their hands and hissed, "Run! If anyone asks, a lion took her!" They ran back to the palace, tears already streaming down their faces, not tears of sorrow, but tears of performance. "Father! Mother!" they wailed, throwing themselves at the king's feet. "We were playing in the jungle, and a ferocious lion came out of the bushes. It snatched our beloved Sea-Rat. We couldn't save her." Queen Anam-Lubvish let out a cry of agony and fainted. King Hashem roared in grief, and the entire palace of Antistan fell into a mourning so deep that the lights were dimmed for a year. But listen closely, dear reader. Allah is the best of planners. When Sea-Rat fell into the well, she expected to hit cold, hard water and drown. She closed her eyes tight, her tiny body shaking. But instead of a splash, she landed on something as soft as a cloud and as warm as a mother's hug. When she opened her eyes, she gasped. She was not in a dark well. She was in a glowing, golden room. The walls sparkled like diamonds, and the air smelled of jasmine and honey. Standing in the middle of this magic was a fairy. But not just any fairy, this was Arbab Pari, a guardian angel sent by Allah. Her face was kind, and her light was pure. "Do not be afraid, little princess," Arbab Pari whispered, wiping Sea-Rat's tears. "Allah is with you." The fairy waved her wand, and the old well transformed into a luxurious, beautiful palace. There were silk beds, rivers of milk and honey, and fruits of every color. But more than food and comfort, Arbab Pari gave Sea-Rat a gift that no king could buy: knowledge. "Close your eyes and listen," the fairy said softly. And the fairy began to teach Sea-Rat the Holy Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sea-Rat learned to recite the beautiful words of Allah, and she learned to sing Nat's poems of praise for the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH. Her voice became so sweet, so full of love and light, that even the stones of the well would soften when they heard her. The dark, forgotten well became a garden of light, all because of the prayer of a little girl. Years passed. The world outside forgot Sea-Rat. Her sisters thought she was dead. Her parents grieved her as a lost memory. But Sea-Rat grew up inside the well into a young woman of 15, with a face as radiant as the full moon, and a voice that could heal a broken heart. One day, a handsome prince named Samir from the neighboring kingdom of Raksha came hunting in the forest. He was the son of King Uzair and Queen Ruksar. While his soldiers Uzair, Muhammad, Ali, Hussein, and Adil beat the bushes for game, Prince Samir heard a sound that stopped his heart. It was a voice so pure, so magical, it floated through the trees like a cool breeze on a hot summer day. It was Sea-Rat, singing a knot inside the well. Maula ya Salim. Prince Samir froze. "Stop!" he commanded his soldiers. "Where is that sound coming from?" Soldier Adil peered through the bushes. "Prince, it is coming from inside that old well. But no one lives here." Samir dismounted his horse and walked to the edge. When he looked down, his eyes widened in shock. There was no darkness. There was a glowing room, and sitting in it was the most beautiful, pure-hearted girl he had ever seen. Her face shone like a pearl. "Bring ropes, hurry!" the prince shouted. They pulled Sea-Rat out of the well. She blinked in the sunlight, scared and confused. But Prince Samir bowed to her with deep respect. "Do not be afraid. I am Prince Samir of Raksha." "My daughter!" King Hashem roared, running to the stage. He wrapped Sea-Rat in his arms, sobbing. Queen Anam-Lubvish kissed her forehead again and again. Prince Samir stood up and announced to the stunned crowd, "King Hashim, this is the same girl. Your eldest daughters pushed her into a well and lied to you, saying a lion ate her." The king turned to his 6 daughters. His eyes were fire. Isha, Ariba, Tayaba, Liba, Minahil and Sahiba fell to the floor, crawling to Sirat's feet. They wept. "Forgive us, Sirat. Jealousy blinded us. We have realized our mistake." Sirat looked down at her sisters. She remembered the dark well. She remembered the falling darkness. Then she remembered the fairy, the Quran, and the words of Allah about forgiveness. She bent down, lifted her sisters one by one, and hugged them. "I forgive you," she said softly. "All of you." Tears flowed from every eye in the room. The kingdom rejoiced, and the 6 sisters were freed from the prison of their own jealousy. Sirat and Prince Samir were married in a grand ceremony witnessed by angels, fairies, and kings. Sirat's voice became famous across the world, spreading peace wherever it went. And the old well in the forest? It became a place of pilgrimage, visited by people who wanted to remember that even in the darkest hole, Allah sends a light. The moral of the story? Jealousy burns the one who holds it, but patience and prayer light up the darkest well.